This is shallots gravy.
It is good.
Happy New Year. Excuse my closet vlog. I don't really have anywhere to put up my camera, and I just kind of wanted to talk about my favorite books really quick of 2022. Okay, if you watched my previous like Kindle scroll through, which was kind of like terrible quality, you would have seen some of these. I talked about them a little bit, but I wanted to go over them a little bit more. We Sold Our Souls is a book that I read in January of last year. It was a 5-star read for me. It was about basically a band that was doing pretty well, and then they were approached by some interesting characters, and something mysterious happened, and basically one of the band members branched out on a solo career and became super famous. And the main character is the girl that was in the band, and she kind of is tired of what's going on in her life, and she finds out some really crazy stuff is happening with her other bandmates. At least that's what I remember. It's been a year since I've read it, but crazy stuff ensues, conspiracy theories. If you're into them, you will love this book. My favorite book by Grady Hendrix. I also really enjoyed Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. I read it while up in a B&B with my husband. It's following a couple staying in a cabin, and some creepy things start happening. They start hearing voices outside, start seeing figures calling to the couple inside. It starts out super suspenseful, very creepy. It's a pretty good read. I gave it 4 stars because I was hoping for something a little bit different at the end, and there was some repetitive stuff, but it was really spooky and it gave off a really eerie vibe, so I really like that. My favorite series of the year is by Anne Charles, Nearly Departed in Deadwood. It's a Deadwood series. Basically, it follows a woman named Violet, and she moves to Deadwood in South Dakota with along into her aunt's home with her twins, and she's trying to find her way and get her footing, and a lot of humorous stuff happens in the series. At first I thought it was like a cozy mystery, but it like had so many humorous things that happened, and I just happened to see recently that it is considered like a humorous mystery series. If you like the True Blood or Sookie Stackhouse series, you'll be really into this series. There's no vampires or werewolves or anything like that, but there's a lot of paranormal elements to it. And at the beginning it starts out like really simple paranormal, and then it kind of gets more and more crazy as the series progresses. Like I said, the characters are so lovable. I think it's hilarious. There's a lot of funny lines in the story. And I don't know. I'm on book 11 already, and I am not looking forward to not being able to read these every week. I'm gonna miss it. Okay, another favorite series is the Akarne series by Lynette Noni or Nani. I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong. Basically, it follows a young girl who happens to get into a different dimension of time, and she goes into, or different reality, and she goes into a school and she learns about magic. And I had seen it was compared to Harry Potter, but to me it's not like Harry Potter, but it's very much an adventure fantasy. Young readers could appreciate this story, but also someone of my age of 35 as well could enjoy it. There is adventure, action, mystery, and a little bit of romance sprinkled in. I don't think I could say enough good things about it. It's an amazing series. I happen to read the entire Vampire Academy series this year. The Vampire Academy is just like YA goodness. It's very fluffy, very kind of cheesy, but I had a lot of fun with our main character's growth. Essentially, it follows this academy of different levels of vampires, and specific sects of vampires are meant to protect another sect of vampires, and then there's the other more bloodthirsty kind, and they are all kind of like in a battle. What my favorite thing was, though, was the romance between one of the main characters and the trainer in it, kind of like taboo romance, but it was a very interesting story. And I loved the entire series. There's only 6 books, so it's really easy to catch up on or get through. There's an ending, you know, like sometimes books go on forever. It was perfect. It had a perfect amount of books. Another favorite this year was Verity by Colleen Hoover. I don't read too many Colleen Hoover books, but Verity follows a writer who gets hired on to be a ghostwriter for another author that she admires, and she ends up getting into a romantic entanglement with the other writer's husband. The reason why she was hired is because the author is sort of in like a weird sort of coma state, but then crazy things start happening where, as our main character, ghost writer author, she starts thinking that the other woman is moving, and the mystery just gets crazy from there. I will always remember this book because it was so insane, and the twists and turns in it were just crazy. Another favorite was Slewfoot. Slewfoot is by Brom, and it follows a woman who has an encounter with a demon in a cave, and it was super spooky the way it was written. And then pretty soon after that, her husband dies in a horrible way, and the village around her and her brother-in-law basically tries to take advantage of the situation of her being on her own, and tries to take what is rightfully hers. And it follows that kind of a story. Another favorite was The Quarter Storm by Veronica Henry. Quarter Storm basically follows a practitioner of voodoo, and she runs a healing practice. Her name is Raina, and she runs a healing practice from her home in New Orleans. And it talks about her childhood and learning all these things from her family, how to practice the rituals and everything, which I found extremely interesting. And then there was a ritual slain in the French Quarter, and the police happened to arrest one of her fellow practitioners, and she basically is trying to find the real killer and defend the practice and the customs, and find the motive behind the actual killing. I thought it was extremely interesting, and there's actually a second book to this, and I'm excited to read it. The next book I want to talk about was The Guest by Mary Downing Hen or Han. It was about changelings, which I love changeling lore. It's like one of my favorite things. I want to say I think I read like 3 or 2 this year, changeling books. Basically, this girl happens to get rid of her brother because she finds him bothersome, and she gets rid of him to the Fae, and it follows her journey of trying to get her brother back. And there's a lot of different crazy hoops that she has to jump through, and she travels through Shadowlands and interacts with other kinds of creature from lore. It's just really cool, and I really enjoyed it. I got it from like a book fair, a Scholastic book fair. It was amazing. This is another one of the changeling books that I read, Little Darlings by Melanie Golding, and it's like a suspense thriller because it's about a woman who is trying to protect her newborn baby. I think it might be twins. I can't remember. It's been a while. So possibly babies. And she's convinced that they were swapped out and are changelings, and the hospital staff thinks she's going crazy, and they're trying to protect the babies from her, and she's trying to save her babies by following the rules of how to get your changeling babies swapped back out. And it's like, is she going crazy, or is this really happening to her? Kind of a situation. Another series I really enjoyed was the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. This is the first book, Corrupt. Essentially, it follows a two-person point of view, and there are these boys, and they run amok during Devil's Night, and they pull pranks, and some things are illegal, and it's following like a revenge story, but also kind of a love story. It's like twisted love. So yeah, and the whole series is amazing. Credence is another Penelope Douglas book that I really enjoyed. It's kind of taboo. It's about a young girl who ends up being placed with her step uncle and her step cousins, and they all end up having relationships with each other, which is really strange, but it was an interesting read. And I think this was another favorite. I like this one better than Credence, Plunk 57. It also follows kind of like a twisted love, like dark love situation. Basically, these two kids are writing to each other in like pen pal letters since middle school, and they happen to run into each other at a party, and one of them knows who the other is, but the other doesn't, and he thinks that she is basically not the same person that he knows in the letters, so he gets like offended. And it's a very twisted way of kind of them interacting and falling in love and getting to know each other as people, I guess. I don't know how to explain it besides that, but this is basically the year of Penelope Douglas for me. The Haunting of Bryn Wilder, I heard a lot of negative reviews on The Haunting of Bryn Wilder by Wendy Webb, but honestly, if you have gone through grief, I feel like there was something so beautifully written about this story. It's I think people went into this thinking they were getting a ghost story. There are like little paranormal elements, and I don't want to give away too much because that's what made it so beautiful for me, is to figure out what was going on at the end. And then when I realized it, I felt it in my heart. So I don't want to give away too much. Dead and Breakfast, which is a Mary Ghost Inn mystery. From what I remember, this series follows a woman and her grandmother, and they open up a B&B, and it is, I think it's haunted, and they have a cute dog, and they solve mysteries. I just thought it was a really cute story. It's by Kate Kingsbury. Anything by Catherine Ryan Howard. I read Distress Signals a few years ago, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. This one is The Liar's Girl. So The Liar's Girl is basically about a student that was convicted of being a serial killer and killing 4 college victims, drowning them in muddy waters. He was sentenced to life when he was 19. He was locked away in a psychiatric hospital. And basically, another character in the story named Allison happened to be in love with the guy who got convicted. And her best friend was one of the victims that got killed back when he was convicted. And then when she found out that that was her boyfriend, she left and never looked back. Well, these killings start happening up again, and they are wondering if it's a copycat or if they got the wrong guy. And this story has so many twists. I tell you, the ending, I was so shocked, and I just love the twists in anything of Catherine Ryan Howard's books. So I can't recommend this enough. If you like suspense thriller, definitely check out The Liar's Girl. And Previous Acknowledgement, Distress Signals, I read a few years ago. Another cozy mystery series that I would recommend by E.G. Copperman, Night of the Living Deed, which is a haunted guest house mystery series. It follows a woman and her daughter, and they purchase a B&B that they're working on, and it is haunted by two spirits, and the spirits are very snarky, and they help her solve crimes. I really love the Bridge Kingdom series. I read it a couple years ago. I finally got a chance to read The Inadequate Heir. So basically it follows two characters that are on two sides of this war, and they happen to meet and fall in love, and it's very precarious, a precarious situation. They don't realize exactly who each other is, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. If you love the Bridge Kingdom series, read that because it's part of it. I read a Silhouette Shadows book this year, and this one was my favorite. I just love the swampy vibes of it. Swamp Secrets by Carla Cassidy. It follows a woman who happens to go to her friend's house and kind of like watch it over the summer, I believe. And there's a strange neighbor who people thought murdered his wife, and he's kind of creepy, and the swamp is just like a really creepy setting, and she wants to kind of solve the mystery behind this man and what happened to his previous wife or girlfriend. And yeah, it's kind of like a dark romance. Another favorite is the Deal by Elle Kennedy. Kind of like a guilty pleasure. It's from the Off Campus series. I've only read 2 so far. If you like fluffy romances, this would be a really good one. It's like a hockey romance. And I also discovered the author Brian Freeman this year. And I'm reading the Jonathan Stride mystery series. I believe that's the detective's name. It starts off with Immoral. The mysteries are very like creepy and gruesome, and I just really enjoyed reading these books. Okay, so, and then this one, Garden of Thorns and Light. I thought it was a standalone book. Sadly, it's got a sequel, and it hasn't been out, and it's been a couple years since it was written, so I'm really looking forward to finding out what happens in the rest of the series, because it left off on a huge cliffhanger. So essentially the book is following a young lady named Amethyst. When she was 6 years old, she was almost stolen by a monster in the woods, and her mom happens to disappear that same night mysteriously. After 10 years, basically, she's still having a hard time dealing with the trauma of this incident. So she is kind of shipped off to her grandmother's house. Not only that, she also happens to be sprouting like green thorns on her skin. So she's trying to keep that a secret as well. So she goes to her grandma's, and she starts learning more about her family, and she happens to she's working on solving the mystery of what happened to her mother and what's going on with the thorns coming out of her skin. It's fantasy romance, and it leaves off on a horrible cliffhanger, so I can't wait for the rest of it to come out. And another cozy mystery series that deserves like a shout out because I've just really enjoyed it is the Miss Frost series. It's a Nocturne Falls mystery series by Kristen Painter. Basically, it follows Jane Frost, which happens to be Jack Frost's daughter, and she solves mysteries in their little kind of Christmassy town, and she runs a little toy shop. I'm not going to go into Shadow and Bone because you guys know what it is, but I really enjoyed Shadow and Bone. I picked it up after watching the Netflix series, and I truly enjoyed it this year. But yeah, those are my absolute favorites of the year. If you have read any, or if you're going to pick up any of these, please leave me a comment down below because I'm really interested to know what you think, or if you're going to read any of these. Thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you later.
No! And that two-hander.
There's a pinball game that'll release several balls at once.
Oh yeah.
It's just like this. So fun. I shouldn't be working my stomach like this.